Good evening. I'm Bill Goodman. Welcome to Democracy and the Informed Citizen, sponsored tonight by Transylvania University and Kentucky Humanities. This initiative seeks to deepen the knowledge and the appreciation of the vital connections between democracy, the humanities, journalism, and an informed citizenry. This program tonight, Through the Lens, is also funded by the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation and the National Endowment for the Humanities. For more on tonight's program, Vice President of Marketing and Communications for Transylvania University, Megan Maloney.
Thank you, Bill. On behalf of Transylvania University, it is my honor to welcome you to our first virtual New Frontiers event. We're joined tonight by 5 individuals I have had the opportunity to work with and get to know throughout my career. 4 of them are talented, award-winning photographers who have spent years working in and around the White House, political campaigns, major news events. They've truly had a front row view of history over the last 25 years. The 5th person is our moderator, and I'm going to let her share more with you about them. So let me introduce her to you. Jennifer Palumbo has nearly 30 years of experience in television news, including ABC News in London and at the CBS and Fox stations here in Central Kentucky. For the past year, she has been an anchor and host at LEX 18. Jennifer is also starting her 2nd year as the faculty advisor for The Rambler, Trancey's student-run newspaper. Jennifer, thank you for moderating our panel tonight.
Thank you so much, Megan, and I am so excited to be here tonight as part of this virtual campus of Transylvania University for tonight's event. Before we get started, though, we want to let you know that you can be a part of our discussion tonight. Just leave your questions you have for our panelists in the YouTube live chat or tweet them to us using the hashtag TULens, and we will get to them later on in this hour. But first, I want to introduce you to our panelists. Sharon Farmer. She's been a professional photojournalist and exhibition photographer for more than 40 years, shooting news stories, political campaigns, cultural events, conferences, and portraits. Most notably, she was the first African-American woman to be hired as a White House photographer and the first woman to become the director of the White House Photography Office. She served as director of White House photography from 1991 to 2001 and as White House photographer from 1993, documenting the beginning of the Clinton-Gore administration. So welcome to you, Sharon.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Glad to have you. Up next, Ryan Morris. Ryan's an independent photographer and multimedia storyteller based here in Lexington, Kentucky. He's traveled and photographed in more than 30 countries and speaks Russian. He's originally from Coolville, Ohio, and is a graduate of Ohio University. Go Bobcats! I'm a graduate of OU's journalism school. Prior to becoming a photographer, Ryan was a Peace Corps volunteer in Kazakhstan, a microbrewer in DC and NYC, a fly fishing guide on a Wyoming ranch, and a Capitol Hill staffer. So let's give a big shout out to Ryan Morris. Ryan.
Hey, thank you. Go Bobcats.
Go Bobcats. Paul Morse, his talent and unique style have earned him the trust of presidents, world leaders, and Fortune 500 companies. The consummate visual storyteller, Paul's ability to capture emotions with power and beauty has allowed him to become a highly sought-after photographer throughout the U.S. After a successful photojournalism career at the LA Times, Paul served as a White House photographer, documenting the lives of President George W. Bush and his family. From his experience at the White House, he's gained the trust of additional presidents and their families, documenting President Barack Obama's inaugurations and serving as a lead photographer for the Clinton Global Initiative. Welcome to you, Paul Morse.
Great, so honored to be here.
And finally, Chris Usher. Born and raised in St. Louis, Missouri, Chris Usher graduated from Indiana University with a degree in journalism. He spent several years as a newspaper photographer before going freelance and moving to Washington, D.C. in 1990. His photojournalism work appeared regularly in domestic and international publications for more than 3 decades. He's the recipient of numerous domestic and international awards, and since 2009, he's been the still photographer for CBS's Face the Nation. Let's give a big welcome to all 4 of our panelists for tonight. Thank you all so much for being here.
Greetings. It's great to be here. Thanks.
So Sharon, let's start with you. Share a little bit of your perspective and what you want people to know as we start this discussion tonight.
That photography is real. Photojournalism is real. And you're only as good as your last picture. That's as good as you are. And if you did a job, you're not sleeping at night. But if you did a good job, and people are telling you did a good job, you're going to sleep tight every day until the next time you mess up. So the other deal is that if you get to follow your dreams because you stay on a path, you believe in what you're doing, the company you keep believes in what you're doing. You will be known by the company you hold and the soul you feel. So photography allows creativity, not just sitting on your butt, not just going into a corner away from people. I am fully engaged in this world. And thanks to all the photographers you have here, each one is an inspiration because they stayed on their path. Anytime you can work at what you love, it don't get better than that. Not at all.
And through your experience as a trailblazer, through your work at the White House, what has that taught you? And as you look at the world today and where we are, what are your thoughts about that as well? And the role that photography plays in documenting history?
That is the importance of history. If it's documented, if it's really seen, if you didn't manipulate the image, change the color, add people, take people away, change the continents on their face, then you're a good historian. You're a good documentary photographer. You're a dynamite photojournalist. Some of these add-ons for photography through Photoshop is for another group of creative people, not for the people in the trenches who deal every day with real people. And then just think about access. How do you get access to people? You got to have a clean slate. You couldn't have got arrested for crazy stuff. Now, I do have an FBI record, but I had a right to demonstrate. I went to Ohio State University. You remember, when you're a college student, you can fix everything.
As did you watch the news that unfolded today with the Breonna Taylor, the investigation and the news that was released? And we have so many powerful images from that as well. When you look at it through the lens of the eye of a photographer, what are your thoughts about where we are right now in our country, and specifically here in Kentucky, which has become a hub for some of the biggest news that we're seeing right now?
It pains me that folks have forgotten how to be kind to one another. It pains me that we cannot move beyond the last slight. And it doesn't matter who's doing it. When people lose their lives over the skin color, I know that could be me, because I get mad when things ain't right, and I don't like bullies. You say something crazy to me, I'm gonna go in a corner with you and go, you lost your mind. You're gonna get a chance. But there's no reason to be mean, but some people have other ideas. Photography and copyrights and being a creative soul is more important than ever, as business kind of tries to rip everybody off of images. So what we have to do is remember, if we don't tell the real history, there's not going to be real history. We know what made up stuff look like. It's crazy. So yeah, I love photography and I love the journalism of being a documentarian and a historian. I'm a historian.
You are. And now safety too, though. You are literally putting your lives at risk to do your jobs in some of these cases now. And how does that change what you do, or does it change how you approach your job?
It changed mine because two things. One, I don't like the ideas of a pandemic. I've seen people get sick from other crazy things they shouldn't die from. No. Number two, I have a tremendous archives that's more than 50 years old now. And if I don't start having it in some kind of order, people are asking for stuff, possibilities of being published as a fine art photographer too. So I have to pay attention to what I need. The kids who are out there, I got pictures when I was a kid out there. I've done that stuff and it did a lot of good. It's their turn. I'm a little, see the gray hair that I used not to have? So I'm clear that this is for the next generation to get ready to fight the power, because this battle ain't over, they ain't over. And the worst part is that we lose the ability to touch and hug each other. We lose the ability to have emotions right there in front of you. And because we have to play it safe. I wear a mask everywhere. If you're not wearing a mask, hey, something wrong with you. Because the deal is, even in 1918, when the flu epidemic was going on, people got rid of it by wearing a mask.
I am with you. Keep preaching that. And one more question before we move on to our next panelist. What would you say to this next generation of aspiring photojournalists? What advice would you have for them, for those who want to do what you do and to be able to follow in your footsteps?
Unfortunately, things aren't the way they were when I came up. Things are different now. You have to literally bite on almost anything that might lead you to where you want to go. You may have to try out a few different things. You'll learn how to adjust when somebody says, can you print that picture? You're gonna learn how to do it. You're gonna learn how to do the things that keep you working so you can enjoy your craft and enjoy your life, enjoy your work. Folks who enjoy their work live longer than anybody. So creativity is healthy. Chris plays music, I play music. There's balance here. I don't watch a lot of television, but I sure watch performance. I sure listen to lectures. Anything that brings education, I'm for.
That's great. All right, Ryan, let's move on to you, Ryan Morris. And what are your thoughts as we take a look at the world and where we are today and the role that you and photojournalists play in it?
Well, there are so many opportunities, especially what's happening today in Louisville and happening in cities and even rural areas around the country. If you are an aspiring photojournalist or a working photojournalist, there is no shortage. There's never been a shortage of subject matter, that's for sure. But it is certainly is amplified now with racial tensions, with healthcare situations going on in the world. What troubles me is that there are so many eyes on these protests, which is great. You get a more triangulation of what's going on. But we are seeing media organizations reaching out to people who are shooting with their iPhone, who may not understand journalism ethics and are squarely on one side of an issue. And those images are getting picked up and broadcast worldwide without a lot of vetting. So that concerns me a little bit about what we're seeing today. But if you're an aspiring photojournalist, today's the day.
You bring up an important issue, though, about the role of video and how has that changed from the photojournalism aspect of it? You mentioned the iPhones, and now you have this whole new set of, citizen journalists. They're not journalists, but you know what I mean, that are out there with their cell phones with the, George Floyd, and they're documenting history in their own way. And what challenges does that present when it comes to presenting what is happening and presenting the truth?
Well, that's a big question. Certainly, those images and the documentation of those instances matter. Those are changing history. We cannot doubt that. On the flip side, with the introduction of iPhones and handheld cameras, that has deeply impacted the photojournalists. I know for a fact. When I was a graduate student, I did my master's thesis on involuntary job loss among newspaper photographers. And what they wanted to do was be photographers, and the media company laid them off no matter how many years experience they had. And what I found in that research was that their paramount concern was, what is going to happen to my community? I'm out here working hard, many hours a day, finding stories to tell, both of rage, both of hope, doing the education stories. There are so few papers that now have an education writer or a business writer. You've seen stories come across Facebook and Twitter that are picked up by media conglomerates. It's a really hard time for photographers to make a living because, as I was mentioning in a class earlier today, you really have to go at this in all of life, that not everyone has your best interest in mind. And when you're hired for a job, you have to make sure that there's a contract there and that it suits your needs as a business person, because that's what you are now. And It's a challenging time, but it's certainly an exciting time to be a photographer or a photojournalist. And there's a difference between those two. I'm sure the other panelists will talk about the difference.
Absolutely. And when we look at this current time too, in the era of, and I'm going to put air quotes up here because I think it's ridiculous, but the fake news and the role that you all play as photojournalists, and what are your feelings about that and that label that we've been given, in my opinion, unfairly?
Sure. Yeah, that is a very unfair term, but it has blossomed in a way that there are fake images, there are fake news stories. And it really goes back on us as an education, the education system in our country, that we are not taught critical thinking. We're not taught civics, generally speaking. And that has compounded itself over a period of decades and generations, in that people just take face value what they see. They don't do their own research. They're not subscribing to, the New York Times, Dallas Morning News, whatever it might be, Concord Daily or the Concord Monitor. They're not subscribing to their local newspaper. They don't want to, and you see often that people don't want to read the story. They don't want to pay for a subscription, and asking people in the feed, what's the story about? Because they don't want to pay for it. So it really falls on us as constituents and citizens to, whether you're a journalist or not, to make smart decisions and choices about how you consume news and how you verify that news. But it's a rough time to be a journalist, for sure. And to be quite honest, I'm kind of glad that I'm not in some of these circumstances that they're finding themselves in now, with being called out as fake news to their organization or even to their faces.
I started out in journalism school. I had VHS tapes for my resume tapes. I mean, that's how long ago it's been. This industry has changed so much. And when you look at it going forward, because I still get the newspaper, and I live in Lexington, but I get the Career Journal online because I want to support those journalists. There are a lot of people I understand that don't care. They don't want to invest the time in being educated. But what would you say to the people who are watching this right now about the importance of what you're doing and also local news?
Well, it's vital. You have to. You cannot be your own eyes and ears for all parts of your life. You're not pumping your own water anymore. You're not. We are schooling our children, but we're mostly not growing our own food. We have to go to other professionals. We have to go to farmers, etc. For our food. We might as well go to professionals for our news. Now, certainly, like I said, triangulating that with others' experiences that you associate with, and knowing if you have friends that you trust that are at these events. In protests, et cetera, or at school board meetings, you can verify what's happening through them too. But you must really take it upon yourself and find that extra money in your budget to help keep these newspapers alive, help keep journalists on the ground, telling the stories that don't always get told, but still build up over time to either expose corruption or expose hardship. There was a great story in town of children who are going to library parking lots and other places that use Wi-Fi because they don't have Wi-Fi at home. Stories like that help families understand the impact and have empathy for others.
And I feel like too, with that specific story that you're referencing, just images of the child sitting there in the parking lot with his tablet. And that's where, in a way that visually is going to, touch people and make them feel that story in a way that just reading the words wouldn't. And again, why photojournalism and video journalism is so important. So
exactly right.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. All right, Paul, let's move on to you. What are your thoughts? What would you like to say about what we've been talking about so far?
I think it's really, really interesting because we're looking at all aspects of journalism and what's real and what isn't. And I think as for young photojournalists today, there's incredible opportunities to go out and shoot, and they can self-publish. They can create their own blog or Instagram feed and really make a difference in the world. Hopefully we'll get picked up, maybe if they want to do it for a living. It's very, very tough now to make that living, but there's more opportunities than ever to self-publish. One thing I found really worrying though is on both sides is like the police firing their weapons at journalists. I think there's been some situations where I know some of the people that I used to work with the LA Times that had things fired at them because they were journalists. There was no question that they were, because they had identification and vests and everything. I think that's really, really wrong. And at the same time, with some of the protesters, I see them getting upset that their faces are being published or their faces are on the internet because they think they're going to be persecuted as protesters. And I think you can't have it both ways in that respect. If you're going to be doing something in public, you're in public and your face is out there. And if you're doing something wrong, then someone's going to see it and you're going to get caught. And that's what it should be about. I mean, we all should have an opinion, we all should express it, but you shouldn't be out there to break the law. So it's a crazy time right now. And I think it's really important that even the most simple moments be documented and recorded, because time is going so fast. I mean, this year there's so much going on. They say, what is the big story this week? And what is going on? And those pictures 5, 10, 20 years from now are going to be so important. I think we're going to get tired of wearing the mask. And once that's done, we're going to look back and say, oh my gosh, look what we did. Look what our lives were like then. And just a simple picture that all journalists are taking are going to be really, really valuable in the near future and the far future.
Absolutely, in a way to document this history that we're in right now. And Lauren Wunsch has a question for you, for all the panelists. What does the future of photojournalism look like in our society? And will it have the power that it has held in the past? An interesting question, and I open it up to all of you.
It's only going to have the same power, better power, if the place that publishes makes it the entree into the publication or into the broadcast. The other deal is you have to be really good at what you're trying to do and make sure that your picture tells a story. A picture is still worth 1,000 words. So you got to work at that.
Yeah, I think, that we, it's going to be even more important, I think relying on what I think of the brand names of news, the major publications, despite the full fake news label that people want to put on that and change that narrative, those brands are the most trustworthy, I think, and you have to rely on things you trust, and that photojournalism needs to be published in those mediums, and because it's going to have credibility. I think that's the key thing going on, is that you have ethical, honest photojournalists creating these pictures and getting them out there.
The future of photojournalism there will always be a future for it. But I think that the biggest problem right now is authenticity and determining what is authentic and what isn't. There are all these deep fakes. I'm very concerned personally about, it's like Paul was mentioning, it's about finding a source that's trusted and then triangulating through at least three different places is what I try to do. You hear something, Sting is dead. Okay, well, let's find that out. Just because everyone's sharing that on Facebook, no, turns out he's not. He's got a new album coming out, whatever. So I don't know. That's something I really wanted to bring up, is that our industry is being torn asunder by creating doubt on whether our images are the veracity of our images.
Ryan, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, I absolutely think there's a future of photojournalism, and I think we're all photographers. We all have phones. We all we're taking pictures daily of cats, dogs, sunsets, babies, but the digital side, obtaining that amount of information over a decade, 2 decades, 3 decades, it's a real challenge, and it costs money to especially in digital photography, if you're shooting raw, it takes money and dedication and commitment to really be able to handle all that information and keep it organized. You have to be working under the, if you're a journalist, you're working in journalism in that frame. If you're an artist or photography, you're working in that frame. But for journalism, yeah, I think it's a must. There are fewer people going into it. There are fewer positions currently. Hopefully that changes. But not everyone can be everywhere. So there are people who will capture pictures that no one else gets. There are pictures of the same scene that are just better. And those pictures are Pulitzer Prize winners. And there's a woman photojournalist two steps over who got a different picture and didn't win. It's just that, some are better than others, and some pictures will last a lifetime and others won't. So I think it does matter.
Journalism waits for no one. So that's why I've always preached that you always carry a camera into the crapper everywhere. So just, you never know, right?
Right.
Chris, let me ask you, we have a question here from Politically Dope is the name that I am given. And it says, are journalists comfortable with Fox News normalizing the current treatment of journalists under this administration? What are your thoughts?
Wow, I really cannot answer that question because I do not have a pulse currently on the state of all of the guys that work at the White House in Pebble Beach, there, Stonehenge or whatever they currently call it. We all get along regardless of the network. All the people that actually do the journalism are very professional people and very cordial to each other and friendly. What was your question again?
No, it was about Fox News and the normalizing, because I see this on Twitter every day where it will be the White House correspondents, saying something that the president has said without pointing out the fact that it's not true. So is it the role of these journalists covering the White House to say, okay, the president said this, but this?
I am completely perplexed on how we've gotten to this. This is my opinion. I am completely perplexed how we've arrived at this point where someone in position of power can just say whatever they want. It's been going on throughout time immemorial, but my jaw, I have scabs on here from my jaw hitting the ground, continually lowering the bar of journalistic standards, or not journalistic, but just political standards, in my opinion. And that's what we are currently, as journalists, are trying to deal with. They're outside of the box.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone is outside of the box of decorum, and I'm completely aghast. It used to be that journalism came out of newspapers and television and magazines and some of those places. And so that created a stopgate or a place to make sure that it was bona fide material, and all those people were educated, such as at Transylvania University, and getting degrees. Then Jeff Gannon happened sometime back in the early 2000s. And I think that was where the dike broke. Now anyone can call themselves a journalist. And there's no, it's just like being a doctor. You have to go to med school and be able to get these things. And now anyone can just be a journalist if they have a blog or work and then they create a publication. So many of those are bona fide and wonderful. And that's actually where I think the future really is that you have to be your own disseminator and not get paid by others and figure out. I don't know, but I'm very perplexed. That's about all I can say to that.
Do you think it is, though, the White House correspondents, especially for the mainstream media, is it their job to call out a lie? Because we see where in some cases it is a lie, but they won't call it that. And is that part of their job? Because you know, I feel like there's sort of been, at least for the mainstream media, there's this line where you're not supposed to give your opinion, but if a lie is a lie, is it their job to call it out, in your opinion?
Absolutely. The whole idea of journalism in the first place is we all call ourselves the watchdog of society. Yeah, certainly we're there to report the warm, fuzzy, and happy stories if they're there. But I think that the forefathers, their intent for journalism and for papers and things like that was so that people can say what they believe, and it may or may not be true. But I do believe that they're also there to keep a tabs on all of those who are serving us. And if someone's making a lie, it's up to us to call it out, so to speak. And it's simple as that. That's why we're there, is to address that and say, why is this a lie, or why is it true if we think it's a lie? I don't know. So
you all are responsible for some very iconic moments through your work as photojournalists. So Chris, let's start with you. We have some photos that we're going to share from each of you, and I just want you to take us through the stories behind these photographs. So if we can we start with Chris's?
I feel like I've been the one talking all this time. Why don't we start with someone else's images? Someone else. This is an image just before Super Tuesday, I believe. We were in South Carolina or somewhere in there. And my father was a big fan of George Bush. And so I wanted to have a picture of me with him. And Tomas Musciano, I can't say his name. Tomas shot this for me. And if you can help me, Sharon, I was like, Muscianico. I can't think of it. I can see the name, but I can't pronounce it. Anyway, so in my mind. That's all this is. It was from after an event, and I said, hey, can we get a picture? And he's like, there we go. He actually also called my father from the plane one time. That was pretty nice.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, what is our next photo that we want to talk about? Let's see. Do we have another one?
Or some Q&A. Q&A
Yes.
is always
Do you have
good.
another question? Oh, actually, wait, hold on a second. We may have a question. Okay, I see Morris Scrubs. Does Morris have a question? Can you speak to the power of the still image in an era in which video seems to reign supreme? A great question from Morris. If you want to jump in, just go ahead and open up your mic and address this question about the power of the still image in an era where video seems to reign supreme.
They have shot so much video. They have overclocked television. They have overclocked documentaries. And a still picture that lets you look, peer, study, is still worth 1,000 words. All the video looks pretty much the same. Photographers get around way more. The guys with the video are on sticks to stay still. They can't run around like still photographers can. The other deal is that video gets told how to edit. Still photographers end up in the beginning making their choices for whoever they're working for. It's your choice because you want to put your best foot forward. A videographer, they done shot, they done carried a ton of equipment. When they get back to the OK Corral, they are tired. They have to bring in other editors to edit their stuff. Personal idea about what's going on. But the still photographers, it's personal.
My take on it is what I always use as an example is the famous Eddie Adams photograph of the Viet Cong guy getting shot. I think most people know that if you're into photography class, the famous Eddie Adams picture. There's also film of that event. CBS was there and actually filmed it. And if you've ever, and you can Google it up and look it up and watch the actual film footage of that, it happens so quickly that it has zero impact. It's just like, boop, boop, the guy's done, it's done. With video, it's so much information and it's transient. So your brain can't land on anything of it. It's just, oh, this guy got shot. But with a still image, it's frozen at that very spot. And that's the edit, and frozen in time. There's the moment. And that's the image that has the impact. No one ever sees the video of that.
Anyone else want to jump in?
I agree. But they are different. I mean, there are different mediums, and they have a place for different viewers in different times of their day, of their life, of their year. It's really hard to compare the two. They each has impact. The impact of a plane hitting the World Trade Center is, just gut wrenching. But then watching that building fall is a whole, the visual of it falling as a video it's just different, and it has its own power. It's really hard to compare the two, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's converse. Yeah, I would say the video is much more powerful for that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I said too, as somebody who does work in the video aspect of journalism, when I got started out, when I was a one-man band shooting my own video and telling my own stories, that it's so much more of a challenge, I feel like, for TV, because as you all have referenced, that you have to tell the story, but they're only listening once. Whereas with a newspaper, with an image, you can look at it, you can stare at it, you can, read the words that go with the image. And that from that standpoint, I feel like, photojournalism does have such an important role. And obviously video journalism does as well, from what you have mentioned, that there are certain moments where one image does not have the same impact as the entire action of the video of what happened. So I think there's room for all of us.
It's true. And yeah. And I'd like to point out audio. I mean, we're seeing the development and creation of podcasts when they take you right there, very, very much like a picture can in so many ways. But when you're able to hear the voice of that person who's in pain or who's expressing hope or joy, it's another level, but they can't be compared. But I have deep faith in the still image for generations to come.
Absolutely. All right, Paul, let's move on to you. And we have an image that we want you to talk. I'm muted, sorry. Paul, let's speaking of the importance of video and audio, Paul, let's move on to you and an image from your career and talk about what it means to you. So let's take a look at Paul's right now and see what we have here.
Yeah, thanks for letting me talk about this. This was taken when I worked at the White House. This is President George W. Bush at his ranch, and he spent a lot of time there, what they call the Western White House. But let me tell you, it was not a vacation, and we were working almost all the time. He was working, running the country, doing meetings, but afterwards he would go and like to cut cedar and kind of take his mind off things. And this was out in the fall, and there had been a long drought, like a 2-year drought in Texas. And we were out cutting cedar, burning it. You can see from the smoke in the background, and all of a sudden a rain shower kind of passed over. And the president was, just put his hands out and his arms up and let the rain hit his face, because he was happy to feel that after have the rain coming down. And I kind of anticipated something might happen because we had to leave. The Secret Service does not like the president out, any president out when there's lightning. That's the one weather they will not let him out in. And so we were leaving, and I thought, well, let's see what happens with this rain falling on everyone, and kind of put myself in position. And sure enough, he put his hands out, and I was ready for it. I didn't know what was going to happen, but that's a big part of being a photojournalist. And I took those skills from my career in journalism and photojournalism to the White House, and anticipated a moment, and was focused, exposed right and everything, and had the lens pointed in the right direction in case something happened, and did. And so that was one of my favorite shots. And this was at the opening of President Bush's library, the George W. Bush Center in Dallas. And I was very fortunate enough to have access behind the scenes as all the presidents came together to pay respects to President Bush as at the opening of his library. And I always find this really amazing because this his dad was there, but he was in a wheelchair, so he couldn't come out on the stage from there. But all the living presidents were together, and despite the politics, they are in deep respect of each other and what they have given, and a part of their exclusive club that they're in. And to see them interacting as regular people and former presidents was really, really special. And it's their kind of true nature that I think everyone needs to see. You take the politics out of it, and they are all really, they're human, they're fun, they're interesting. Bill Clinton is amazing to photograph, as Sharon knows. He always makes great pictures, and he always is kind of an instigator. And I had kind of anticipated something like this happening since with the levity of the event, and then again, just watched, was ready, anticipated, and the moment happens, and you only get a couple seconds. As photographers go, it's only like 1/25th of a second or 2/50th of a second. So that's all you get to capture a moment in time. And that's where I think still photos are really powerful, because your photographer gets to make that decision right then. And that takes, I think, a lot of talent in all photographers to be able to know when to take the picture, where to be, and to have that moment, because it's gone. And we have to capture things as they happen. And this is, again, one of my favorites. I'm glad you're showing that.
Yeah, it's a great image because it makes you want to know what exactly were they talking about that they were laughing about. It just, there's the power of the candid photo as well. And Sharon, you have some images that we want you to talk about as well. So take us through some of your most iconic photographs.
Well, I wouldn't call them the most iconic, but I would say they're okay. These things happen all the time at the White House. And in those days, we were still using negatives. And I use a wide lux camera. This is a panorama. So I take my time as they're talking about whatever they're talking about before things get more serious. They're getting serious. They keep getting serious. But the panorama only does one side. So I also have 3 other cameras on me, a Leica and 2 Canon cameras. And then I also have a little pocket camera, because you never know when something doesn't want to work. So you got to cover everything. We have cell phones in those days. One of the highlights of my life ever was meeting Nelson Mandela wherever we were. And here we're in South Africa. He's come to visit. Mrs. Clinton had already come because she had gone to his swearing-in ceremony. I thought I had died and gone to heaven. The second biggest time for me was, of course, President Clinton. But you never know what you're going to see. And I was so mad that the podium couldn't show the handshake. And when they had the embrace, somebody was walking looking a little crazy, so I couldn't use that one. So glad to get that one. Got other stuff too, but somebody else gets to make choices about what gets seen. So I know I got to get my portfolio together. Every time we go where there are not good things going on, there are no sidewalks here. There are no houses per se that are sturdy. There's a whole group of people that live a lot worse than the people in a lot of places. And we're in one of those places in Kentucky.
Was this Jackson County? This
yes.
Like, yeah, the enterprise zone. I remember this.
Yes, because everything, you need economies now to stay able to take care of yourself, take care of where you live, and take care of your kids. And if they can't get an education, you too get stuck in the cycle of poverty. Your kids get stuck in the cycle of poverty. And enterprise seems to be the only way that lets you afford, be your own boss, and yet make money to get yourself up. But you need the money to do it. So education to me needs to be free, period. It just needs to be free, because we enrich all of us when we make education the real deal. The other deal about civics is It's always fun to go to places where people are nice and respectful, and you're nice and respectful. When you go to places where you know people are looking at you, and you know you can tell they don't like you, and you ain't done nothing, okay? But it may be that. It may be, maybe I don't look good enough. Maybe I look like I know what the hell I'm doing. Some people can't stand the idea you can't pass muster, and that's their problem. When I was in Butte, Montana one year, hey, I had to call down to Sam to come rescue me. And some guy was trying to tell me with his hand on his gun, I couldn't stay on the balcony. Oh, really? Whoa. Had to get me an agent. Sam went and got 2 people who told that guy what my pen meant. Okay. Does it happen to anybody else on my crew? No.
My first job in TV news, I had my life threatened. So, you know, that is just, it's just one of those things that you never forget it. But that image, was that Governor Paul Patton walking with President Clinton?
I think so, but I can't.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I remember that. Okay, Ryan, we have 2 photos of yours to show that we would like you to talk about. So first, let's start with Governor Matt Bevin.
Oh, sure. I chose this one. I figured I'd bring it back home to Kentucky for a little bit. This picture is, you know, it's not really a great photojournalistic image or whatnot, but for Kentuckians, I think many of them understand and know that face that Governor Bevin is making there. This is his inauguration, and he came to win the election in the spring with 83 votes in the primary. Only 83 votes is what put him into to face off with Jack Conway. And so you just think about what happened. So voting, there are consequences with voting. There are with your choice. And here in Kentucky, we had a Medicaid expansion program in place, which benefited several 100,000 people well, that's too high of a number. I have to look that up, but benefited several thousands of people who were able to obtain health insurance for the first time in many years. And under Governor Bevin's administration, he dismantled Connect. So that's a big, there's a whole campaign around access to healthcare. So campaigns aren't always political, and there are consequences of voting and who you choose. And with this, with what happened here in Kentucky, there are a lot of people paid the price for voting for their tickets or voting for what they didn't realize might impact them. And this goes back into, we hear that often, that people voted against their own self-interest because they're not paying attention to the news. They're not reading the local newspaper or really scrutinizing what they're being told. So we'll see that, I think, a lot with environmental issues and certainly healthcare issues.
And just the framing of that photo too, with the American flag and the Kentucky flag, I think really made it powerful too.
Oh, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, he had higher aspirations for sure.
Yes.
No doubt. Governor Pence was right behind him at the time, but I don't think he's in that frame.
Yep.
The next picture is just, goes to what Chris said earlier, and I think all of us will speak to, is carry a camera all the time. And this is early morning at a voting precinct. Are we even going to have voting precincts anymore? This isn't really a journalistic picture, but it can be used in a number of ways. So voter turnout, who's coming through the polls, what did voting look like in the past? And it's just a simple message. I mean, campaigns spend millions and millions and millions of dollars and burn up miles upon miles of roads and resources. And it comes down to who walks through that door and pulls a lever. And, we're seeing sadly that it'll be interesting to see what happens with this election, but so a healthy percentage of U.S. citizens are not voting still. And that's a real shame and shock to me.
It is. We have a good question here from Connor Williamson, who wants to know, what negative effects have social media had on the way individuals receive their news? We touched on this a little bit earlier, just about the Facebook and Twitter, but what are the negative effects that social media has had, in your all's opinion?
If they don't vet the people who are putting stuff out, if they're not clear about who is accountable for what got put out, The excuse later telling us that they didn't know never works. So they ruin their own credibility.
But also the problem with some of that.
Go ahead, Chris.
The problem with some of that also is the damage done, even if it's disproved. And people just accept all of these things now. And I'm appalled that people accept them just easily, so easily.
I mean, in most things, being first is best, and especially if you're in a photojournalism standpoint and you have got your peers next to you and you're trying to get a picture out faster than anyone else, the best picture out faster than anyone else. But we're seeing it too with media agencies. And, I often see headlines that will have errors in them and that are left up for days.
Yeah.
An error in a headline, I'll look at it and it's been up for 8 hours. How is that even possible? I just don't understand how that's possible.
No one's paying for journalism anymore. So there's one person in the office doing everything.
On the cheap.
So I think the downside of that is, the citizens in Pocatello, Idaho are seeing the same story about a woman who got pissed at a McDonald's employee in Fayetteville, North Carolina. And as how much is that really news, to that community? But it's one conglomeration that's just pumping stuff out. So I think that's where people aren't getting local news on a regular basis that they trust.
I agree. I have a question about that with social media and this lawsuit now that Vanessa Bryant, Kobe Bryant's widow, has filed with the police, and the images that were released from his crash site. And we don't have a whole lot of time left, but I'm just curious what your thoughts were about that. You are given a photo that is so powerful and so dramatic. What is your responsibility? And now in the era of TMZ, obviously there are outlets that don't feel any journalistic responsibility. But what were your all's thoughts about that? And somebody from the sheriff's office releasing something like that?
It was wrong. It's just flat out wrong. The dignity of a human being, especially when they're dead and weren't expecting to be dead, and you're not thinking about the sensitivity. It's bad enough we watch all this blood and gore on television, because now they show you when you get shot on TV. It is not cool for our mental condition. You're really saying that human beings don't matter, and now you're treating them like the cattle you slaughter. You're treating them like the fish you fry. It is wrong.
Yeah, I would say also people want images flashing, and everyone knows through like social media, they want the next thing. They won't spend more than a half second scrolling through Facebook or something looking for a news story. So I think people know they have to make, hit people hard to get attention, to get more than 1 second. And that is disgusting. And there's no decency in that. And there's no respect, I think, for families. People just want likes or clicks or something like that. And I think that's gone completely the wrong direction, in my opinion.
Yeah, the dialogue is very emotion-based now. And so that's what a lot of these Facebook things to get everybody riled up about. No matter which side you're on or whatever. So it's interesting.
Yeah. Okay, so Ira Peppercorn has a question for you all. He says, faces are so important in photography. How has COVID changed your photography when so many people are wearing masks?
It's
Well,
what's your body look like? It's more than your smile and your nose. It's body language.
I would say when I edit photos, the first thing I look at are the people's eyes, because that tells the story always. So you look at the sparkle in their eye, what their eyes are saying. And yeah, the mask can't see the smile, but the eyes always tell the story. And I think you can't hide that.
And I think Sharon touched on it. Earlier, that it is more difficult because you're not getting people hugging, kissing, and interacting as much because of the COVID, because of the pandemic. So that makes it more difficult to get what I like to call real moments. I like to shoot real pictures of real people doing real things. And that's what you are as a journalist. You don't make stuff up. You have to just be in the right place. It's like Paul mentioned. He positioned himself. You have to pre-vision and see, well, there's rain and he might do this. So if he might do that, where should I be? That's part of being a photojournalist, is being in the right place at the right time without any help or direction to your subjects. You should never, ever manipulate your subjects. But going back to that, that makes it difficult. But as everyone said, it is what it is. So that is the story, is the mask. So now I'm looking for interesting ways to shoot the masks. And
Yeah, that's very true.
And so that's what being a journalist is going with the flow. It can't be what you want it to be. It has to be what it is.
We have a few more minutes to go, and Dave Cronin has one question here about what was the last job you shot on film?
Chris?
Man,
That's,
it's been a long time since I've talked a client into shooting film. I still shoot film regularly all the time. That's what I love. But no, it's been 5 or 6 years.
Longer than that for me, at least 20 years.
Longer. Every once in a while, I can talk them into it. You know, I'm like, hey.
I go out with my black and white cameras for me. And when I'm working with me and I'm just taking a walk and I take a black and white camera. But the people I'm working with, they want it yesterday. And so I had just had to hop to it.
What was the last job that you shot on film? Do you remember?
Oh my God.
I do. Oh, okay.
No.
Go ahead, Chris.
All right, I just remembered. It was in 2015 or 2015, and it's a songwriter in Austin, Texas. Her name is Kimmy Rhodes, and I did 8x10 for film. So that was the last time a paying gig with film. Yeah.
I have to say, Chris's film work is amazing. There are a few photographers that really keep up with film, have kept up with film, and Chris is certainly one of those in an editorial setting. And then we all know who the other few are, but
Burnett.
Yeah, David Burnett for
sure. He's my hero. He is my example. Yeah, he's who I always try to aspire to be.
I still have one of those little rolls of 35 millimeter of film. Can I even get them developed anywhere?
Sure.
yeah, I got some right in there.
Oh, okay, good. I don't even know what's on there, but I still have it. And
Bring it on over. Yeah.
I look back at those images and they're so much clearer than the ones that we shoot on our phones. And so we're almost out of time, but let's go around here with everybody. And I want you to just give me your thoughts about the future of photojournalism, where we are right now and where you think we are going, and why there will always be a need for the work that you all are doing. Sharon, we're going to start with you.
We're honest folks. We are hardworking, honest folks. Photojournalism demands that. So we stay honest now. The young people who run around with us, we encourage them to be honest, and they get it. And they're doing good work. So the future looks, because another group that ain't tired is coming in here.
All right, Ryan, you're next.
I think the visual language is as healthy as ever, and if we can just get ethical journalists or ethical editors, those who are pushing quote unquote news out. I mean, the term media has been beaten up and misused so much. It's just it's a shame. But accidents and illnesses don't discriminate, but people do. And this is why people have suffered in silently for so long until the still image came along, then the video. And just like with George Floyd, had there not been a video of that, people wouldn't know.
Right.
The same thing with still photography. As photographers are out there telling stories in their neighborhoods, in downtown Louisville tonight, it's going to have an impact on those who vote. And that's going to change or alter the trajectory of how this country keeps moving forward.
Paul.
It's all about capturing moments, telling stories. The world's going so fast right now that photojournalists need to capture the most subtle, dramatic storytelling pictures because we need to know in the future what happened today. And I think, if anything, the pandemic has caused us to slow down and to appreciate some more simple things. And I believe people from around the world need to know what's going on around the world. We need to know what's going on in every corner, because it's all affects us. I mean, you look what's happening now, and one part of the world affects us here in the US, and we need to know that story, and we need it forever.
Chris, bring us home.
So there's never been a greater demand for images ever. I mean, there still is, and whether it's video or stills, that's so important. But my cry out is that you guys that are watching this, that you want to be photojournalists, you are the ambassadors for our industry. You are the carriers of the bailiwick. You are those that are going to continue the string of journalism. And so it's up to you to self-edit, monitor, and be cool. Don't add smoke or babies or do anything that you can do in Photoshop to make your pictures better. They are what they are. That's really important. And I've been noticing that people don't really get that in the last 20 years. That's a sacred photojournalism, whether it's video or whatever, it's sacred. No faking, no changing. That's all I got to say. Just, and be true to your school and follow your heart. I think Sharon always said, if it means getting a job sweeping the floor at the local place that you want to work, then get started in there. You'll just be there, and it will happen.
That
Any
is
crack in the door. Take any crack in the door.
That
Exactly.
is great advice. Yes, I started in Hazard, Kentucky, and I say, get wherever you can get that first job, get it. That is great advice. I want to say a big thank you, Sharon Farmer, Ryan Morris, Paul Morse, and Chris Usher. Thank you all so much for taking time tonight to be part of this discussion. And on behalf of Transylvania University, I want to thank our panelists. Through the Lens was produced by Transylvania University in partnership with Kentucky Humanities and with funding from the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation and the National Endowment for the Humanities. Tonight's video production is courtesy of Real Picture Live. Thank you to Transy for allowing me to be an advisor to the Rambler, the student newspaper. And again, thanks to everybody who tuned in tonight. This was a great discussion. Thank you all.